My teacher in my last year at school said, Ian, if you ever make it to principal, I'll eat my shirt. That sounds like a challenge to me. That's great.
Welcome to the Mindflick podcast. The Mindflick podcast explores the psychology of high performance. Every episode, we will sit down with leaders, athletes, and change makers to uncover the turning points, the pressure moments, and the crucial experiences that define their journey. I'm Sir Andrew Strauss, chairman of Mindflick.
And I'm Pete Lindsay, performance psychologist and co-founder at Mindflick. And we'll be taking you inside the mindset shifts that have shaped some of the best minds in both sport and business. And we'll blend that thought leadership with real life stories, bringing performance psychology to life in a way that's practical, human, and impactful.
So on this week's show, we were lucky enough to speak to Iain Mackay, the artistic director of the Royal Ballet School. I found this story really fascinating. I don't know a lot about ballet, but hearing him speak, it was incredible, the parallels between what he went through in his career and, quite frankly, what I went through in mine. So a very sort of personal connection there, but also just really underlines the point. Performing in whatever context, you come up with the same challenges and opportunities. And I thought his journey was a fascinating one to listen to.
Yeah, and what struck me about his journey in particular was it wasn't just a story of his career. It was a story of a series of quite kind of brave and courageous shifts in identity, from a coal mining grandfather who believed in him, arguably before Ian believed in himself, all the way through to, leading one of the world's greatest ballet schools. Every chapter kind of showed how it had shaped how he thinks about performance, leadership, and himself in that context. So I think there's a lot here about handling comparison, dealing with pressure, and staying open and curious, even when you're at the very top.
Yep. So if you are interested in performing at the very highest level, but also what goes on behind the scenes in those incredible ballet performances you see, this is definitely the episode for you. Ian, well, a very warm welcome to the Mindflick podcast. Really excited about this episode. We've had a few previous guests from the world of sport and business, but you are our first guest from the arts. And I've got to hold up my hand and say I don't know much about ballet, but I'm really excited to hear a little bit today about not just your journey, but actually what it takes to perform in a ballet, both individually and collectively. So really excited about it. We're going to start in the way we always start, which is just to ask you, Ian, what are you most famous for, and what are you doing with your time now?
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
I'm really excited to be in the podcast. What am I famous for? I don't know if famous is the word I'd use, but I had a career that spanned 20 years in the professional world of ballet, performing for the Birmingham Royal Ballet, traveling the world as a guest artist as well. So that would be my claim to fame. And I guess now I'm in an impactful role within the arts, and as the artistic director of the Royal Ballet School, which is, and I'm not just saying it because there's, I'm biased, but it is the best, or if not one of the best schools in the world for creating the next generation of professional ballet dancers.
It is probably worth saying that you are one of our clients at Mindflick, Ian, and just as a starting point, I'd be really interested to sort of get your thoughts as to sort of why you reached out to Mindflick. What were you trying to achieve at the Royal Ballet School that perhaps you were struggling to achieve previously?
So I've always loved sport. As a young man, I played football a lot. I wasn't great. I was a really good golfer. And what people don't understand with ballet is when you get to the elite level of training, it's like being in a football academy. It's like being in a karting, building up towards F1. It's like what a young golfer would do as they're moving through. Like, there's so many synergies just in one, the focus, the discipline, that elite aspiration, and also the percentages of people that actually make it. When I saw Mindflick and what they do in terms of working with really high performance teams, that's what we're doing. Like, our healthcare department, our artistic team, so that's our coaches, our teachers. We are working with the most elite young people in this field. And actually, what sport has done magnificently is sort of use science and start to inform themselves over the years as to how they link all that up. How do they use the data and the knowledge and work together to make these athletes even better? And And as an art form, we've probably been slower to do that. What I saw you were doing in other industries in terms of alignment and bringing teams together and how actually being impactful and that leadership front, it just seemed like there was something that we need to explore and had to get involved in. Our Mindflick journey has been pretty, it's in the early days, but it's been brilliant. What it's creating is far richer conversations. There's sticking points, I think, with any high performance team, but the conversations that the Mindflick sort of platforms allowing us to have has been superb.
Very good to hear that, Iain. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
I mean, one further follow-up question before we get into your turning points. The role of psychology in ballet. I mean, from the outside, it all looks unbelievably choreographed and it's about sort of endless practice, etc. But I'm assuming psychology, mindset still plays a very big part for the performers.
Yeah, it's huge. It's not just in the performance, it's in the preparation. It's all about confidence as well. And you can only fake confidence to a certain extent. You have to really have that mindset. I heard in one of your podcasts talking about the yips. I didn't know you got yips in cricket. I had no idea. I've never played cricket. Obviously, I'm aware of the yips in golf. We get stage fright. Where dancers of all ages and all levels can become so terrified of actually going on and doing that one thing that they have been training and love. And, so in terms of sports psychology and performance psychology, it's massive. And then you get to injuries, you get to, the complexities of the competition level that you're up against in terms of your peers. All of it comes down to a mindset. It's really obvious in things like ballet. It's not always the ones that are best at it that achieve the greatest things. It's the ones that can approach it in the best way, the ones that have got that sort of resilience, or the ones that are able to pivot quite quickly. If you're doing a ballet, you could be doing a 3-hour show. If you do one step that's wrong, some people that can be like, oh, that's it, it's over, It's like an own goal at the start. Well, you can put your head down, or you can actually say, well, I've still got another 2 hours, 55 minutes, and I need to sort of deliver, a performance essentially. So yeah, the mindset is huge. And that's hard to teach as well. It's hard to teach.
Yeah. Well, and it's actually one of the reasons that we formed Mindflick, really, which was our sort of collective understanding that the same player, but that one player being confident, having the right mindset, being able to do it under utmost pressure, and another player who has performance anxiety, who's not able to get the best out of themselves when it really matters. Those are two completely different trajectories based really on what's going on in your mind. And so the idea with Mindflick was just to sort of take that work that we've done and share it as widely as we can, and with people who are in their own performance sort of context, wherever they might be, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's at school or university, etc. So, we so much believe in everything you've just said there. So let's get into your journey then, Iain. I'm really interested to understand kind of how you got into ballet in the first place and the different challenges that you encountered along the way. So why don't you start off with your first turning point?
I guess growing up in Glasgow, it wasn't the norm to find ballet. My brother went along because he saw the TV programme Fame, which was big in the sort of late 80s, and he wanted to learn how to dance. So he went along, and at that point, the teacher said, well, why doesn't he come? I was stood behind. So that's how we kind of get into it. No one danced in the family, but I remember instantly loving the physicality of it. Like, I loved how it felt natural to move in the way that I was being shown. I wanted to practice. I wanted to do it on my own. We kept it a secret. We kept it hidden for years. It was like sort of this thing that, of course, growing up in a small village, it wasn't something that we were shouting about until my dad actually got the local newspaper in, because we did a first performance and they covered that the Mackay boys, because my brother as well, we were going to be in this performance of Scottish Ballet's Nutcracker. And of course, everyone in the local village gets the paper, so all of a sudden it was like, great, Dad, that's that's a great move there, thanks for that. So yeah, and that led to sort of various difficulties. So one of the major turning points was actually my grandfather, who was a coal miner. From the age of sort of 13, he had been down the mines, and that was sort of what he did. He wasn't educated, but he self-educated, and he was really curious about this ballet thing. So he had us playing golf. He was a great golfer. He was a scratch golfer, so he used to take us and we'd play golf. And when we found ballet, he was intrigued. He looked it up. He went to the library. He got all the books out in the library about what ballet was, and he started sort of given us this insight. And I remember, at times saying to him, I'm getting a lot of stick about this, He saw something that I couldn't even have imagined at the time. He was just like, look, this is going to take you somewhere that you don't even know. He's like, I don't even know, but if you're as good as they're saying you are, this is going to be something that you should not ever worry about people either saying mean things or calling you, as you can imagine what they would be saying in Glasgow back then. And that was amazing. I remember thinking, oh, okay. And I really respected him. He was such a strong character. And he was right. I remember being 18 with the Royal Ballet. We were on tour. And I remember writing him postcards and saying things like, you were right, because I'm in Tokyo. We were in Beijing, we were in Shanghai. And it was like he'd actually seen that as that being the opportunity. When you're 18 and you get curiosity to be traveling the world and doing something that you've still not fully got to grips with, you're quite young in the process. I imagine it's like any, when, footballers do the world tours or, the World Cups, like, you're going somewhere, you're so focused, and it just feels so surreal to be across the other side of the world and people really enjoying what you're doing as well. So
it's an amazing sort of start to any sort of journey. But I was saying to Andrew before the podcast, often when we speak to athletes and sports people, when they're kind of school age, the sports person, the football team captain, the cricket captain, in a way, they're representing a lot of the masculine norms, like that, and as a result they're a bit of the cool kids. Obviously you're in contrast to that in sort of many ways, and doing an artistic form that maybe brought different challenges and different challenges in the schoolyard and so on. When your grandfather said that to you, what did that give you in the moment?
It gave me a lot of strength. He never spoke badly or anything, but he was essentially saying they're really ignorant to think this. These people have no idea. And do you know what? I bet he was getting it as well. Like, I bet he was also getting from his probably peers when he was out in golf, And so it gave me strength, it gave me confidence, it helped me believe, it gave me that mindset of, do you know what? It doesn't matter what others think. If you're enjoying something and you feel it can take you somewhere, then you got to keep pursuing that. So there was a drive there that was fueled. We did a lot of sports. So like I was captain of the golf juniors one year. I was captain of the football team. So I was in a really weird position where I was sort of almost doing those things, but actually this big ballet thing was actually the thing that was clearly what I was best at. When I turned up at school in London, my grandfather, he did come down and he said to the director of Royal Ballet School, Dame Merrill Park, she was a dame, and he said to her, he's a much better golfer than he is a ballet dancer. She didn't know what to say. He's plays off 7, and actually he's been, she was like, no idea. She thought it was hilarious.
That's amazing. I mean, it's interesting. I remember Seb Coe once saying, you don't choose your sport chooses you. Obviously, ballet was the thing that you ended up being best at. And I'm just wondering, what was it about ballet that chose you, so to speak?
It was the physicality of it, the music. There was something about there was something so performative, obviously, about it. So I like that idea of being on a stage as well. And I think you're right. I would say that's a certain character. They always say that the dancers have this real challenge of wanting to seen, but actually wanting to also be invisible. You find a lot of really good performers that on stage, they're animals, they come alive, and actually in the street, they try and not meet eye contact with anyone. Like I've seen lots of my peers over the years. I would say I was probably a bit different. I wanted to be seen on stage, and I was really happy to be seen off stage as well. Like I would be that of the party and wanting to enjoy myself. But by the age of 13, that was me. I knew this was what, like, I wanted to do that. And I'd then only just found out that it was a career that people got, that was a possibility. And that was me just totally locked in.
And just out of interest, I mean, at that stage, at the age of 12 or 13, did you know you were seriously good?
I mean, I was the only boy in my class. I was brilliant. I was absolutely, I was smashing it. I was the best. There was a thing as well where we would come to Yorkshire or to London, where there was maybe seminars with other boys. Not only would you then be around peers, but you'd then start to feel, oh, actually, maybe I'm just as good as them. And then in performances, again, it was just something that I really enjoyed. It was something that was an absolute, joy.
Your second turning point was really, I suppose, starting to bring this dream of yours to life.
Yeah, turned up to Royal Ballet School, and as I said, being the only boy in my class in Scotland for nearly all of my sort of ages 11 to 16, I was the best. And then you turn up and you realize that there's some people that are really way better than you. I mean, there's students from all over the world, male, female students that were just insanely talented. Like, I remember just thinking, oh, damn it, this is not good. But it was not good in the sense that, you know, you start questioning your own ability. You then realize that being around that also it just supercharges you when you've got, and I see it now, when you've got these young people and it's like they just feed off each other. Everyone in that sort of balance of competitiveness, but also, you know, peers, and that sort of everyone after the same goal of improving towards the profession. It was a huge eye-opener. If anything, all it did was just strengthen how desperate I was to make this my profession as well. And it's still not a given. When you get into the school, there's no real given as to what's going to happen. You deal with injuries at that point because the training increases massively when you get to that sort of age 16. You know, I went from doing maybe 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, to doing 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, you know, so like it was a huge shift. The teachers were incredibly demanding. So that was a huge shift as well for me.
And Ian, how do you manage that? Because I guess, you know, for some people, that shock of kind of realizing, wow, like there are levels, people from all around the world coming in. Like for some people, that'd be humbling, intimidating. For others, it's energizing of a sense. Like, how did you ensure that served you rather than kind of almost like shrank your self-belief?
Yeah, I don't know if it did always serve me to begin with. I think I went through a few phases of that actually while I worked it out. I was then living in London for a start. I moved from Glasgow to London. You know, there was a lot going on. It was humbling. I think humbling, and I think that's good. Like, I think actually it can really focus you. It made me realize that actually if you wanted it, you had to turn up every day, like, because you know what? Everyone else around you is doing that, and they're going to be the same people that are looking for the same jobs that you are. It was tough, but I think in many ways it grew, you know, built my resilience. I found a lot of people really subservient because they'd gone through maybe quite rigid systems. So, you know, like as an example, they would see members of staff and they would sort of bow and they'd go. So people that I'd be in the dressing room with them and they'd be joking and it'd be young, and then they'd see someone, they'd be like, and it became very sort of respectful and very traditional. And I wasn't from that sort of background, so I'd be like, hey, how you doing? I didn't have any airs and graces. I mean, it was always polite, don't get me wrong, but I found it really funny when people were sort of, you know, joking and laughing 1 minute and then deadly silence. I felt I could be more authentic than they maybe felt they could, because it might have impacted, you know, that they weren't being serious enough or they weren't working hard enough. I remember about the first week or something, it was like someone said, it was either a company member who was already, you know, or a coach, and they said something like, oh, that one's going to need elocution lessons. I remember thinking, well, so that is me. That's where I've come. That's my roots. And actually, if I don't hold on to that, I don't know what else I had. Like I was, and I guess that comes from my grandfather as well. That really sort of, don't worry about what anyone else is thinking about you. Just sort of focus on what you're trying to do. And I've always held on to that.
Can we just spend 2 minutes just going on a course of ballet for dummies here? Because I'm really interested to know what it's like on a day-to-day basis. Like what is a typical sort of day/week for a young aspiring ballet dancer? And I suppose in a way, following on from that, what are the traits that you need to reach the top? Like where do you need to have a sort of super strength in order to sort of pass all those other aspiring ballet dancers and make it through to what I suppose is the sort of professional game, right?
Our students at 16 will come in at 8:30 in the morning and they'll leave at 6:30 at night. At the Royal Ballet School, for example, and most other vocational schools, they would be doing sort of 2 hours of academics towards their A-levels. And then they would most likely go into an hour and a half training class. So that's ballet, that's focusing on technique, that's focusing on detail, that's focusing on movement patterns, or it might be doing that they're working on footwork, or they might be working on artistry and musicality. So the teachers will set that up. They would then go into a pas de deux class, which is where the male dancer is lifting the female dancer, and they'd be working on intricate choreography. You would then maybe have an hour for lunch. You would then go into strength and conditioning, probably for about half an hour. There might be a cardio session. And then in the afternoon to the last session, there might be choreographics, or they could be learning repertoire. So that would be like if you imagine the company's doing Nutcracker. So they would be learning a section of Nutcracker. You're building skills that you're going to have to use in the profession. You have to learn choreography quickly. You have to then be able to replicate it. You have to work with other dancers. You have to be able to manage your own technique. You have to be able to, all of those sort of things in preparation for the profession, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty exhausting, to be honest with you. But, I mean, one further question on this, because I think it's really fascinating. Sometimes in some ways, it feels similar to cricket, but to what extent is it an individual game versus a team game? I mean, there's obviously a big individual element to it, but I'm assuming you can only really sort of show your true worth alongside your teammates, correct?
It's a really fine line because, you want to be seen. You're first going to be seen when you're in a group. So you want to stand out enough to be able to move from that group. But when you're in that group, being good and being part of the team is being on the same beat, with the head looking the same way, the arms in the same position, like all of those sort of things, and their skills that are, that we want them to have. It's a fine line. I think what you see is personality. So you can do the same with people's personality. Maybe their own sort of feel for things comes out, and that can be really noticeable. And the other thing is when you get the opportunity to stand out. So when you get that solo, you squeeze the life out of it. Like you actually take that as your moment to say, yeah, I can be in the group, but look at me when I'm also on my own. It doesn't always have to be the same thing that makes a dancer stand out, but you can have like your super strength. Like someone can have a super strength. It might be that they're just, like you say, they can just stand on stage and they've got an energy, and that could be their super strength. It could be some that when they jump, they just have this natural ability to elevate and to sort of stay with that sort of flow in their movement. Dancers are we always compare ourselves. Oh my God, I wish I was as flexible as that person. I wish my legs, the shape of my feet were as bendy as that person. I wish I could jump as high as that person. I wish I could turn. But actually, what we all say is like, find your strength. Everything else has got to be good. When you find your super strength, like elevate that, like share that. And that could be a whole host of things.
What's nice about that is there's a contextual bit to a super strength, isn't there? Like it's a strength in context. If you used it everywhere, or if you use it in the wrong context, people might point to it as a weakness. Actually, they should be just doing what everyone else is doing. They should be fitting in and making this look seamless, but they're trying to stand out. Like, why are they doing that? Versus in that moment when it is your moment to command the stage, that is a unique talent that maybe only one out of the group owns. But you're learning the skills to judge when to deploy that strength as well, I guess.
Yeah. I think there's another point as well when it comes to that mindset as well, as it's match day. In sports, you have people that, are great in training, but when it comes to the game, they're maybe not. Whereas we have the same. You have dancers who in training, it's exceptional, and then it comes to the stage. And that's like that's like a whole nother level. You've got costumes, you've got lights, you've got different theatres have different sort of width of stage or live music. So the tempo might be faster, it might be slower. That is when someone can really be like, you can just say, do you know what? They never fail to deliver. That is a talent. I found out my talent when I was about 21. And my talent was partnering. I was really good at partnering. I was really skilled at it. All the ballerinas wanted to work with me because, not all of them, I don't mean that in a big-headed way, but they would, because it was a safe pair of hands. And that then allows them to do what their superpower is, because there's one less thing to worry about. You can have a good career off one superpower.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, we talk so much at Mindflick about the value in understanding what your super strength is, what's going to separate you from other people. And obviously our focus is always on making those strengths better rather than worrying too much about your weaknesses. I mean, did you have any significant weaknesses at that stage that you thought might sort of kibosh your ambitions to be a professional ballet dancer?
One thing, when I entered into the company, so at age 18, I got offered the job with the Birmingham Royal Ballet. Really prestigious company, a Scottish physio. And she said to me, she was brilliant. She said, look, the coaches have said they really like you. I'm 6 foot and a bit. And she said, they really like you, but they want you, you're going to have to partner quite a lot and you're not strong enough yet. So we need you to get into the gym. Come tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. I was like, well, we don't start until 10. She was like, be at the gym at 7 a.m. And that was it. So we went to the gym. It was that mindset as well. Like if someone's saying to you, as a coach and someone that I trusted, and I trusted my coaches and those people. They're saying, we really like what you do. Your strength is going to be your height, but you need to get stronger. You need to build your physique. Well, that was me. I was like, great, that's a great purpose. In between all my other work, that was what I knew I had to do. And about 8 months later, she came up to me and she said, you can relax on the gym work now, because it made the shift that I had wanted. And after that, that put me in a really good footing for the rest of my career. Whether that be an injury or, rehabbing an injury, which, dancers all the time, like, injuries are biggest fear. And it can be something quite small that can sideline you because the nature of what we do. It's a bit tunnel vision as well. Anyone that's going into this level of aspirations to have this sort of elite, like, it becomes quite selfish, I think. And I think actually that's a quality you just have to acknowledge. I think my wife would attest to that for like the last years of me being a dancer. I mean, like, really stupid things as well. Like, when my kids were born and like I'd have a show, I'd be like, and they were a bit, they were maybe 2 or 3. They'd be running to jump at me about like, whoa, don't, I've got a show tomorrow and my back goes into spasm now. Like, this is not good, because actually, like, every moment, especially when you get to the later point, every performance is precious. Like, any major injuries it always gets harder once you get into your sort of 30s. So I think you have to grow quite a thick skin as well. It's a subjective art form. I can't say, oh, I'm the best ballet dancer. I could say I'm the fastest in the world at 100 meters. Like, it's quantifiable. You can't really do that with ballet. So you're always sort of, it's an art form. Some people would love what I did and others would be like, oh no, he's rubbish. I don't like watching him. I'm not going to his shows. That's part of it. But that in itself means that you've got to have your own focus and your own mindset as to, do you know what? I'm not going to please everyone, but I'm going to absolutely give everything to be the best that I can be, because no one can take that away from you. I was really aware that I was never the best as well. And I'm not being, self-deprecating. It's nothing to do with that. But actually what I did brilliantly and consistently. And that allowed me to have a really great career. I say that to dancers all the time.
And Iain, how did you learn to do that? Because that, some of those bits of feedback when they hit us as a youngster, as you're a young adult, for some people they can be something we push against. For others, we take them on board and we go and do that daily grind in the gym and so on. Like, how did you take that kind of feedback as a positive, and how did it serve you rather than pushing against it and saying like, I disagree, you're wrong?
I don't think I always agreed. I think I'd use it as fuel. Like we do, you mentioned critiques. That's the other thing. Like, we have people write about our performances and they're not always complimentary. I remember someone saying to me that, like, quite early on, don't read any critics because the good ones are never good enough and the bad ones you never forget. And it's true. I remember one person coming, was really respected by everyone in the back, and they saw my performance and they were like, that was honestly one of the best I've ever seen in this, that and the other. And then a critic came out, I thought, well, that person said it. So, and of course it tore me to shreds. And I was just like, but what I could do, like, I could also look at it, and I think I can, that's one of the things I still do very well, is I can look at that and say, yeah, I see where they're coming from. Like, I get that. I could probably learn from that, even if it was painful, even if I don't agree with it, I could see why they could interpret it that way.
I really like not going too highs with the highs, not going too lows with the lows. This kind of trying to stay. Did that come naturally, or was that a skill you learned as well?
See, when I was about 11 years old, my grandfather said, you know what, you've got to take life with equanimity. And it was a skill I learned in the golf course, because, you get a triple bogey and I'd be like, I can't believe this. And he was like, no, clear your mind, because otherwise you're going to get another triple bogey in the next. And I try and instill it in young dancers as well. Like, you can absolutely celebrate and acknowledge the high points, but don't overinflate them. Don't get carried away with them. And same with the lows, like, acknowledge it and say, yeah, this is not great, but it's okay. I can, might be injured, might be a bad performance, so it's just about finding that balance for me, because I think actually that allows you to stay in a really positive mindset. In general, the scrutiny that dancers put themselves under is probably far greater than any other. Like, the perfectionism within our industry is huge. I'm sure you see it in a lot of elite young sports, because we start dealing with really minuscule movements, really nuanced that most people wouldn't know. But I know that happens in a lot of sports. Formula One, it's all about the minute detail. But dancers start doing that with their own bodies. How they lift, how they're going to look, how they land from a jump. There's a lot of self-critique.
Well, look, you said that you don't often get a lot of feedback and it's quite hard to know how well you're doing, but you were promoted to the principal dancer at the Birmingham Royal Ballet. So that must have been a big kind of slap on the back for you, knowing that you are doing quite a lot right. But I suppose alongside that comes a lot of pressure of being the sort of main man, so to speak. So do you want to sort of talk us through that turning point?
Yeah, I mean, like, it is the pinnacle. Principal dancer of any company across the world is you can't go any higher than that as a performer. And I made it after 4 years, and I never thought for 1 second. My teacher in my last year at school said, "Ian, if you ever make it to principal, I'll eat my shirt." It's like, that sounds like a challenge to me. That's great. So within 4 years, and it was that keeping my head down, turning up every day, and overnight, this was the real head messer. Overnight, people then assume that you are a principal dancer, but nothing's changed, And I jumped 2 ranks. So I went from a junior soloist to principal, and there's normally senior soloist in the middle. And after that, I just remember thinking, oh, what now? That now there was expectation. It was great for about, the euphoria of getting the promotion, but actually the reality of then delivering became something different. A lot more self-doubt came into me in that period in my years as a principal, the first couple of years, than any other time in my career. That was the first time I got sort of stage fright, just not wanting to go on because I was so worried about what the outcome was going to be, overthinking it. And it was because, well, there's an expectation. You are a principal. You should never have been a principal, that sort of thing. So that was an interesting period. Do you know, I did something probably quite extreme to challenge it. I thought, because I'd been there since a young lad, I guess I was 18, I was a young dancer. And I always had it in my mind, the reason I was promoted was because they like me. So I left the company. And went to another company for 2 years because I wanted to go and prove myself that I was. And after about a year in the company, the director of this other company, who was a mega famous star, he was just nothing but praise, work ethic, what I deliver, the consistency of my shows. I was like, oh, okay, maybe. But it was interesting that I had to go find somewhere else to prove myself because I felt I'd got it too easy.
Yeah.
I then went back to the other company and stayed for another 10 years. So it all worked out.
It just sounds a little bit like you had some imposter syndrome there in terms of over promoted. Why me? Is it just they're being nice to me? Am I really this good, etc., etc.?
Yeah, massive. And actually what I became was a far better member of the company again. I'd left my insecurities that I'd started building up when I got promoted to principal.
I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong on this, but that when you are the principal dancer, you have the sort of combination of having to go out and perform consistently. There's also a sort of everyone looking towards you. So you have the sort of role that you play as the sort of senior figure within the company. And then the third element, which you just described there, was also looking over your shoulder, kind of like, I might be the main person at the moment, but there's a big cross on my back for people that maybe want to take my place. So an interesting sort of mental challenge there to sort of combine all those three things together.
The other thing is, like, you're in the pressure points as well. So like, you would have shows, and you would, if the principal dancers are coming off punching walls because they're not happy about their shows, then that's what the younger dancers will start doing. They will start punching walls, But then you're in a fine line, because if you don't acknowledge that you didn't think it was good, they might think, oh, he thinks that's good enough. So it's that sort of, but you can do it in a way that's positive. And I would say the positive thing was coming off and then saying, oh, I need to do that better. I'm going to practice that. I can work on that. If you've got one show of Swan Lake and you've been training for 5 weeks for that one show, that sort of level of pressure and you want it to be right, you want it to be good for your company, you want it to be good for the audience, that's quite a heightened environment.
As you were describing it, I was looking at Andrew, that journey from I'm part of this team to now I'm a leader. I'm like the captain of this team. I was looking at Andrew, because there's often that assumption as you get promoted up now, you're going to lead us, but you're the same person you were yesterday. You've not massively developed a skill set overnight in leadership or managing your emotion, but now you're expected to do that. And like you say, every behavior, every action, every response sends ripples through a system, through a culture about how to be and what's accepted and all that kind of thing. How did you navigate that, learning the skills to take on the responsibility of leadership in that context?
I think it was to do my upbringing. I did have good examples in the company ahead of us. We had bad examples, we had good examples. It is good sometimes as well, just say, do you know what, it's only ballet. Like, no one's going to die from this. Like, this is it can feel like it means the world and it's everything and it is life or death, but it's really not. I always think as well, even in the role I'm in now, like that pressure is a privilege, and it's just managing how you deal with that. There got to a point as well where I was sort of, 36. And I was realizing that I wanted to move on. I was hungry again to do something else. Like I was already teaching a lot. I was coaching some of the younger dancers. I wanted to look at how I could create opportunities in terms of giving access to the arts. So like I set up a small company that we took dance into hospitals. I started doing, work in my children's primary schools, because I was like, there might be one boy in there that does like dancing that doesn't want to see it, because my energy and focus to stay as a professional dancer wasn't meeting my expectation of what a performance was anymore. Like I'd be killing myself just to do what, it was a baseline, and I was like, I don't want to keep hanging on to that. Ballet changed my life in a way that I can't even imagine. Like I speak Spanish because my wife's Spanish, and that's only because I ended up in a ballet company and met her, and like it's just enriched and made my life. I've met amazing people, I've done amazing things, but it wasn't how I ever imagined. And if I can create even a platform or an opportunity for young people who have got a talent, like Andrew was saying, or like their sport has chosen them, their dance has chosen them, because it's a hard, long slog. So if I can create channels and pathways and support, then I knew I wanted to do that. I don't think I was going to be in the biggest school in the world, but that's one other thing.
Well, exactly, and very keen to come into your present role. Just one further question on your career. When you look back at it, at what moment do you feel you were most satisfied with what you'd achieved? Was it when you got promoted to being a principal dancer? Was it when you retired? Was there somewhere in the middle where you thought, I've reached my absolute peak? Like when you reflect back, when was that moment, do you think?
I'm not trying to dodge the question here, but it was the whole journey for me, and I think that's what people miss now. That's what young dancers miss. There was just some moments like we really random stuff, like we performed. There wasn't much. We performed in Buckingham Palace, things like that. I once did a Tom Jones music video. We went, we were in Tokyo in these theatres, and there was standing ovations. We toured America. It was far bigger than just ballet for me. It was just life experience, and and of course always focused. And it was all dance was my driver. That my vehicle. If there was one moment, I'd say probably when I was around 35, there was a couple of years where for me they were like the golden years, because emotionally I was in a really good place. My youngest son had just been born. My oldest son had got to see me dance a little, and I was still really enjoying it. I'd say that was they were the sort of, that's really sad. Out of 20 years there was only 2 years, 2 good years.
Yeah, but I suppose, that's the problem with the performance, isn't there? That you can never fully relax because you're always worried about your next performance or, your next show or whatever. So it does keep you on your toes in that respect. But, well, let's go forward then to retirement. And obviously you said your mind started sort of drifting towards how you could help other people, other young people that were coming into the profession. But I just wonder, how much did you feel like you had to sort of redefine yourself? Like, did you feel like there was a moment there where you were sort of losing your identity? Like, were there some difficult moments? As I certainly know they were for me when I retired from playing cricket. Or was it quite a sort of smooth transition to life after dancing?
When people ask me what I did after that, when people ask me what I did, what'd you do? Oh, I'm a principal dancer. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, what'd you do? I'm an ex-principal dancer. Like, is that even interesting? I don't know. That identity loss was tough. It was really tough. It shaped everything about my life. So there was a point I definitely suffered. There were some weird things, physically, my body was so used to working and training every day, and then I didn't have to. So I took advantage of that for like 3 months, and then I hated the fact that my body wasn't moving in the same way it used to. So I went like full circle and went back. I need to, I did have a bit of time away from sort of performing company. So like I wasn't. So then when you go in, you kind of feel, oh, I'm not part of this team anymore.
Yeah.
That can be quite hard because you do feel like you're part of something really special. And then you're not, and that can be a bit of a challenge. I was hungry to do something else. I wanted to be good at whatever I was going to do next, because I felt I'd been good at what I'd done previously. And so for me, it was like, whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to put everything into it. I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to help people. I was really driven by that. It was, how can I put everything that I've learned together? What other skills can I add in And how can I make that? What would be my new super strength then? Like, what would that actually look like? And how can I use it?
Where's the buzz now? You must have got an incredible buzz out of being out there, performing in front of thousands of people, nailing it when it really counted. How do you find your way of getting your buzz now?
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever replace the buzz that I got from rehearsing for 4 weeks to go into a run of performances. Like, I just don't think it's replicable, because live theatre, you never knew what was going to happen. And that was something like, it was spectacular. I didn't love the applause. Like, that wasn't some people saying, like, standing there and getting that applause. That wasn't something that ever drove me. It was the process of trying to be better. What absolutely now inspires me is seeing young people who want to do what I did, essentially. When I see someone that they don't even know how good they are, and they've got that sort of just fire in their eyes, they're humble, yeah, that's quite special.
Look, I'd love to keep talking to you. I think we've sort of reached the end of our time, but we do always finish with one final question, which is, if there's one piece of advice that you'd give our listeners from everything you've experienced in your life to take away with them, what would it be?
Oh, take whatever you're pursuing seriously, but not too seriously. Like, there has to be space for that balance of emotions in order to actually be able to keep turning up. And, especially for young people wanting, it's not always going to be the way you want it, and that's all right.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Iain, it's been a real pleasure having you on the podcast. I think what's really come startlingly to the fore for me today is just that you're in a very different world, very different performance context, but the issues that you have to deal with are exactly the same as the ones that I had to deal with, and probably Pete, when you were working in football, was very similar. And it sort of goes to show that there's nothing unique out there, right? Like, we're all trying to do the same thing. We're all subject to the same emotions. We all have our own strengths and weaknesses. And to reach the top, we all have to, dig deep and find our way through to the top. So it's been really fascinating from my perspective. Thanks so much for your time. And obviously, we wish you all the best with the work you're doing with this next generation of ballet dancers.
Oh, thank you. It's been great chatting with you.